So here's a scenario, maybe you can relate. You've been working on a paper, it's due really soon, and it's terrible. Your thesis doesn't work, you can't find any evidence, you can't find anything to talk about, and you can either just bail out and just crank something horrible out, or just keep going, because it may be bad and you may be wrong, but hey, you've put this much into it, you might as well keep going. This situation usually happens because of an error you've made at the very beginning, which is not front-loading the labor when it's small. Spend a lot of time on the small things so you can spend a little bit of time on the big things. If you can start with a really effective topic, which develops into a really effective hypothesis, you're going to be so far ahead than the typical route of finding a topic that's good enough. It's broad and it's vague, but you can move on, you can keep going. And the reason we're drawn to the broad topics is because often we're worried we aren't going to find enough evidence, we aren't going to have enough to talk about, and it's like easy. Remember when I talked about topics like the media has a negative influence on body image? We know that's true. That's defendable. That's logical. But once you actually have to articulate it and crystallize what exactly do you mean by that, and who is the media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it becomes almost impossible. And once you've already written 2/3 of your paper and it's awful, any changes now are massive overhauls. But if you put the effort in on that initial stage, it's counterintuitive because it's hard. And you feel like, oh my God, I spent this much time on my topic, on one sentence. Everything after that is easier. And I know I've said this before, and I will say it again many times. The strategies to improve your writing will make your writing better and easier. You have to get over, though, the instinct to keep pushing back the hard parts. All right, so what do I mean by that, and why did I say hypothesis? I find when we say thesis, when you develop a thesis at the outset, you lock yourself into it, right? This is my thesis. I can't find any evidence to support my thesis. Well, maybe it's a bad thesis. Maybe you're wrong. A hypothesis, though, is a surface thesis, right? It's a starting point of this is what I think the answer to my question is, right, that I have set up. But I'm open to the evidence taking me in new directions. This is critical thinking. This is inquiry. And that's where you want to start. You want to be open to new ideas and the possibility that the evidence will reveal something you hadn't anticipated. So how do we get to the hypothesis? By developing a question. Your topic is your research question, and research here is a catch-all term. It might mean traditional research. It might mean simply delving into the topic. You're trying to create a question that is focused, clear, singular, and open-ended. Invites multiple perspectives. All these things, which again, feels like it's a lot. But the ripple effect, the ramifications of a bad starting question, which leads to a vague thesis, will compound as you go along in the writing process. So that's the idea here, is to start from a place of clear, focused intention, but a willingness to let the answer reveal itself, whatever that answer is. In essence, a way to think of it would be the way to think of, you really want to know where you're going to end up at the end of your paper, but you want to be wrong, right? You want to have discovered something new, because discovery is what makes writing interesting to all parties. So that's what we're going to be digging into, is this idea of developing a hypothesis, and more specifically, developing a good question, which will reveal an interesting hypothesis.